coronavirus, we've seen that buying things online has become a trend of the best way to purchase items. And I've noticed that Amazon, obviously, who's become the juggernaut during these times, has done something really interesting in the way that they do buying and selling that impacts our lives on a daily basis. When you place an order with Amazon, you'll pay your money over online, and then you'll receive an email confirmation from them of the product. So you've seen a picture of the product, you've seen a confirmation, you've put a down payment on the product, and then they give you a delivery time of when that product will arrive. And as you anticipate the arrival of that product, you begin to prepare to receive it. So my boss ordered a desk recently, and she transformed the inside of her house so that she had the right place to put her desk, she had the right chair to go with her desk, all these different pieces of the puzzle that needed to happen to rearrange in preparation for this desk that was coming. And as I think about God's grace, I think that there are some striking parallels there. We've received God's grace in a way because Christ came and he died for our sins and he rose from the dead, giving us that confirmation and that down payment that this is already purchased. We can see what's coming and we can get excited about that. And what it gives us then is an urgency towards action. So now that we know that we're receiving it, we want to prepare for that gift that's coming. So the question that I want to talk about tonight is, how do we respond to the gift of God's grace? I think Christ's transforming grace, it awakens us to obedience as God's children. I think of this in terms of walking with my dog. When she runs away from me chasing a squirrel or a rabbit, my first instinct is to chase her down and to punish her for running away. But I learned a long time ago that doesn't work. What works in her case is to call her back to me, and then when she comes back, to reward and to praise her so that she wants to walk with me and wants to stay alongside of me. As we look in 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 14 through 16, we read this: As obedient children, do not conform to the evil desires you had when you lived in ignorance. But just as he who called you is holy, so be holy in all you do. For it is written, Be holy, because I am holy. In this passage, God calls us children. You are his child. We are his children. We've been adopted through the work that Christ has already done. But then he says, Be holy, because I am holy. And I think this is a call into obedience. I see this as a call into obedience through a desire to be with God and a desire to imitate him. In that process, I think of a child with his father. And that's the picture that comes to mind. In fact, there's a song that I really love that's called Watching You. And it's about this boy and his dad. And they're driving through town in the middle of the day. And the dad has to stop really fast. And the drink spills on the boy's lap. And the boy says a bad word. And the dad goes, Whoa, where'd you learn that? And the son goes, Well, I've been watching you, Dad. Isn't that cool? I want to be just like you. And the dad's struck by that. And so he obviously asks God for help. And then later that night, when they get to bedtime, the boy is climbing into bed. And he crawls back out and gets down on his knees by the side of the bed and talks to God as if he's talking to a friend. And the dad goes, Son, where'd you learn how to pray like that? And the boy goes, Dad, I've been watching you. Isn't that cool? I want to be just like you. And in the same way, we get this opportunity to look to God and to go, Dad, what are you doing? Let me imitate you. Let me be holy in the way that you are holy. But what's that look like in our lives? I think for a lot of us, that starts with being attentive to God. As we go through life, there's so many times when we give our time to other things outside of God. And so for me, I know TV is a big distraction. So one challenge would be to fast from TV for 7 days and see how that changes your life. And maybe take the time from one episode of whatever TV show is your favorite and spend that with God instead. Or maybe you go, no, I don't even watch TV. And so it means setting 3 different alarms on your phone for morning, midday, and evening so that you can take 5 minutes and just spend those 5 minutes in prayer with God each day. Or maybe it's celebrating a Sabbath effectively, of taking a 24-hour rest period with God. that might seem difficult, or it might feel to you, well, I know that I'm a Christian, but I'm not really God's child that much. And it makes me think of another song, actually, that I really love, where this neighbor catches these three boys doing something bad, and he brings them to his neighbor's house, and he says, I know that one of these is yours, because when I caught them and they were in trouble, they came running straight for your house. Now, don't deny it, but which one's yours? And the dad looks at him, and he says, that one right there is mine. He belongs to me. And he affirms the identity of his son in spite of the badness of his actions. And I think God does the exact same thing when we're accused before him. He says to the accuser, that one right there, he's mine. That one is my child. So Christ's transforming grace awakens us to obedience as God's children. We want to imitate him because we have relationship with him, and we want to be like our dad. Since we understand this identity as God's children, we can also understand that Christ's transforming grace awakens us from ignorant living to fully engaged lives. Let's read from 1 Peter again. In 1 Peter 1, verses 13 and 14, it says this, therefore, with minds that are alert and fully sober, set your hope on the grace to be brought to you when Jesus Christ is revealed at his coming. As obedient children, do not conform to the evil desires you had when you lived in ignorance. Christ is calling us to shake out the cobwebs and the distractions to focus on him. I don't know about you guys, but I love my Sunday afternoon naps. And when I take a nap on Sunday afternoons, I don't set an alarm, which sometimes means I sleep a little bit too long, and by the time I wake up, I'm feeling kind of groggy and foggy-headed. Maybe some of you guys can relate if you've taken a nap that's too long at some point. And I realize that in order to be engaged with the rest of my day, I have to do something to shake the cobwebs out of my brain so that I can focus in on what I need to do the rest of the day. And I think that's what this passage is saying here. Have your minds be alert and sober. Get rid of those things that are distracting you and that are clouding your vision so that you can focus in on who God is. I remember hearing a story about a man from Africa who his job was to catch monkeys, right? He'd catch them and he'd sell them to tourists and stuff that came through. And the way that he made monkey traps is he'd take and cut a gourd in half and pull all the seeds out of the inside. And then he'd take and put a hole in the rind that was just big enough for the monkey's hand, its paw to fit in, but not big enough for its fist to come out. Then he'd put some monkey grub in there and put it up on the tree so that when the monkey came by, he would see it. He would go for the grub. He would grab a handful of it, but his hand wouldn't come out. But that monkey valued that one handful of grub so much that instead of letting go of that and scampering away to freedom, it would hold tightly onto that and be brought into captivity. So what's your monkey grub? What is it that you and I are holding on to so tightly that we've lost track of the life that God has for us? That fully engaged life where we're fully free and we've been brought into captivity by something else. Perhaps for you, that means that you have to give something up. Perhaps for you that means you need to take something on. Maybe it means that you just need to set aside that time in your day where you set an alarm for 9 o'clock every morning, and at that point, when that alarm goes off, you can keep doing whatever you're doing, but you thank God for 5 things in your life. Or maybe it means going, you know what? I spend so much time on this one thing or this one pursuit, and it's getting in the way. It's clouding my vision so that I can't see what God has for me clearly enough. And I need to cut that out of my life. Whatever it is, it's like taking a camera and focusing the lens so that instead of having this blurry picture out in front of you, you're fully dialed in and focused on what it is that God desires for you to see. Some people are going to go, I don't know, there's just so much that I can do, and I don't feel like I can do it. It's just too hard. I get it. I've been there. In the last 3 months, I've been there. So what's the baby step that you're going to take today? Maybe that's when you sit up in the morning. You say, thanks God for a new day. And that's the first step towards being focused. Whatever it is, Christ's transforming grace is seeking to call you from ignorant living, from being distracted by evil desires, to fully engaged life in Christ. So as we think about this question of how do we respond to God's gift of grace, I think we see that Christ's transforming grace awakens us to obedience as imitators of God, as God's children. And it awakens us from ignorant living into fully engaged lives. What's it going to look like for you today to let go of the monkey grab, to shake the cobwebs out of your head, and to be focused on what it is that God has for you? Is that taking the TV challenge of fasting for 7 days from TV? Is that setting a Sabbath routine into practice? Is that a different thing that God's convicting you of in your heart right now? We have the choice to continue to live the same way that we have always, or we have the choice to live like we mean it. Today, in your life, are you going to live like you mean it? How are you going to respond to God's grace? Thank you.